Sustainovation, which founder actually was Joe Cressy several years ago, and our goal, our mission is business for the world we share, finding ways for sustainability and innovation to integrate and create humane environment where people can be happy and healthy and prosperous. We're part of the overall Connections group, which Connection is the nonprofit, and Connections connects all of these other groups and more. Connections' aim is to discover the deep connection we have with the earth and with each other, and how to live within the earth's abundance systems. Of course, one way to do that is eliminate waste and put the resources back to work. And business has a role to play in that. The other projects include the Enneagram, which is a personality analysis. There's 9 different personality types. Enne means 9 in Greek. And essentially how the different personality types complement each other, so that because we see the world differently, we experience the world differently, and when we get together, then we can create more complete solutions and more complete systems. First it's understanding each other, and then putting them together in business is any business solution. So it's actually specific applications in business. Exploring sense of place is about connecting to where we live. So what's unique about this place, this, like the Bay Area, or our part of the Bay Area, and San Francisco Creek, and so on, right? The very unique things about this geological setting, but also the history of this place. And so sense of place links all those things together. Getting Going Growing is helping children to connect with the earth and learn to grow things and see how agriculture fits together with life, as of course it does. The Green Fork Project is a community garden, so that's more for adults. And living locally, that is, what kinds of foods can we grow locally and not have to ship them from China and still enjoy this place? Permaculture Project is more about integrating urban and rural life, so integrating gardens into the city and helping people to grow things and understand the connection with the earth and with agriculture. And finally, the Walk Through Time is it's a book. It was a project. There was a whole exercise that people can do and walk through history and see what has happened in various periods of history, and it gives us a sense of where we fit into the overall history of the earth. Okay, so we have this Green Zebra book, which was out there. It's coupons that are related to products that are green, and cost $25, but Whole Foods alone has $25 worth of discounts in here. So, all right. So tonight we're going to talk to 3 movers and shakers in the local cities, and of course they were quite marginalized back when they started a few years ago, and now it's becoming mainstream. So we have Steve Attinger from Mountain View, Environmental Sustainability Coordinator, Diane Dreyer from Environmental Programs Coordinator from Palo Alto, I'm sorry, Menlo Park, and Julie Weiss of Palo Alto, in Palo Alto Regional Water Quality Control Plan. So they're going to talk about what they have experienced in their work and what role the cities play or would like to play in helping the rest of us have a higher quality of life and a better relationship with our local ecosystem, socioeconomic system. So with that, they will talk for about 45 minutes, and then we'll have some questions, and then we'll break up into groups. Okay? So who wants to start? Steve.
Stand way over here so we know. Great crowd. How's everyone doing? Having a good New Year so far? I think it's a good New Year. I'm looking forward to the 20th of January. Thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules to come and listen to three of us from local cities as we talk a little bit about kind of what we're doing on the city level around sustainability, what have been some of the challenges that we faced, what are some of the obstacles we've overcome, and just a little bit of information. Oops. Let's see, where did I do this? There we go. Just a little bit of information so you can get a sense of kind of what's happening at the local level. I've got quite a bit of information here, and I've got about 15 minutes. So what I'm going to be doing, just to let you know, is I'm going to just touch on a couple points for each slide. And we're going to have time for questions and answers afterwards. So just kind of try to soak it in a little bit, and we'll be happy to answer any questions as we go along, or excuse me, afterwards.
Will the slides be available later?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So in terms of what I'm going to talk about, just very quickly, overview of our sustainability program, a little bit about our task force and our green team, some information about our water and energy and waste conservation efforts, and our renewable energy, and then we're going to finish up with some of the challenges we've had and some of the successes we've had. So one of the successes, just to give you a little bit of background, I've been with the City of Mountain View in the position of Environmental Sustainability Coordinator for all of 12 months. Okay, this is a brand new position that the city funded in the summer of 2007. So when he said 2 years, I haven't even been in this position 2 years. I've been in the field for about 7, but in this position I'm fairly new. So one of the challenges I had initially was just kind of getting a little bit of visibility for the program. So I was actually very happy when they allocated some homepage visibility to our program. So that was kind of a quick win that I was real happy about. Now, this is kind of a lot of information, as I mentioned, but I just want you to get a flavor of the kind of programs that the city is currently working on. Again, I'll just highlight a few of those. We've got a general plan update process that's currently in place. For anyone who knows about that, that takes about 2 to 3 years. And the city has dedicated resources to make sure that climate change initiatives are incorporated and woven into the language of the general plan. And that's a significant initiative in and of itself. We currently have a council environmental sustainability committee that I and other citizens are working with to actually implement some of the 89 recommendations that the Sustainability Task Force back in 2008 delivered to the council for consideration. We have an internal green team that focuses on how can we as a city green our operations. And throughout 2008, we went through the process of identifying 127 different internal initiatives that we can work on to conserve energy, water, reduce waste, et cetera, et cetera. We analyzed all those. We met with the departments who would be responsible for implementing them. And we're now in the process of kind of working with each department to get those behavior changes implemented. Again, a number of renewable energy programs, water conservation audits. We are migrating basically as we turn over the automobiles in our fleet, as we kind of take them to end of life. Pretty much without exception, we're replacing them with hybrids. There are some cases where that doesn't make sense to do. There was one case in point where we recently were considering purchasing a new boom truck to repair our streetlights, and that's a very specialized vehicle. The hybrid version of that vehicle costs $65,000 more than the conventional vehicle. So our business and internal services manager ran the ROI, and we just couldn't make it pencil out. We said we would actually be better off spending that $65,000 on other initiatives. That's a lot of money to spend on other initiatives. So that's a case in point where it doesn't always pencil out. Environmentally preferable purchasing policy, the council just a couple months ago actually approved an environmentally preferable purchasing policy. Right now we're in the process of developing all the details and the handbook around that so that when people actually make procurement decisions, if there is an environmentally preferable product available at a reasonable cost, and that will be defined in the handbook, then we're basically looking toward making those kinds of decisions. So I'm just going to keep moving here. Some proposed actions that we're looking at, going forward this fiscal year and next fiscal year. We're going to be working hard on getting a green building ordinance. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Increase our tree planting efforts around Arbor Day. Perhaps putting forth a plan for carpool bike walk incentive program for the city employees, kind of to work on the transportation element of our greenhouse gas footprint. And we're looking at two bills right now, AB 811 and AB 2466. And these are going to be different. One is a financing mechanism. AB 811 is a financing mechanism whereby we enable residents who own property to basically get loans from the city for energy efficiency or renewable energy programs, and that basically is tacked onto their property tax. Okay, so we're looking at that right now. And there's another bill, AB 2466, which would enable us to put up, for example, a solar farm somewhere in the city and allow us to offset energy generated at a different facility. So we're really excited about that. Also, AB 1881, that is about to be finalized by the state, and that's going to require drastic energy reductions, water reductions in terms of the city water use and actually also on the part of the residents. As you all know, we're pretty much in a drought already, and this winter isn't helping us at all. So that's the legislation that's already in the pipeline, and we're going to have to be putting forth basically an ordinance specifying how we're going to meet that requirement. This is an example of our sustainability task force. It worked from February to September 2008, as I mentioned, delivering 89 recommendations to the City Council in September. That was an enormous, enormous task.
All volunteer.
All volunteer, yes. They met 20 times as an entire group, and probably each of the 11 working groups, which are detailed right here, each of these 11 working groups probably met another 15 times on their own. 68 people, although the majority of people who were supportive of that effort on a regular basis was probably more around 30 or 40. And this is our internal green team, just to give you an idea. This is half of our green team, excuse me. So in terms of some water conservation efforts, we're doing a lot of the same things that many cities are doing, working to have low-flow toilets or no-flow toilets. We're doing water audits of a number of our facilities. The Santa Clara County Valley Water District offers free water audits. So we've already had water audits of several of our buildings, and we're going through the process right now of analyzing those and finding money basically to implement those water efficiency projects. We have a joint effort with the City of Palo Alto, which is basically a recycled water project. All of our wastewater is basically pumped to Palo Alto that has a waste processing facility. And then we get recycled water through the Purple Pipe Project back to Mountain View, and we're using that for irrigation purposes in the North Bayshore area. So that's been that's been in the process for a number of years, and it's actually expected to go online here in the next couple of months. Moving right along. We are very happy with our waste diversion rate, which currently sits at about 72%. The minimum required by the state is 50. So we're very happy about that, and you can see some of the reasons why we have a high diversion rate. One of them is that we have pretty good outreach to our community to inform them about our recycling efforts and about proper ways of handling their waste. We also are sharing our waste processing with the city of Sunnyvale through the SMART station. And that's a very sophisticated station that not only has human people working on it, but also is very automated. And it can process quite a bit of waste on an hourly basis. And just a few months ago, we formalized a construction and demolition debris ordinance requiring that 50% of all debris be diverted away from the landfill. And based on some of our task force recommendations, we're going to be looking to increase that in the next few months, in the next few years. Energy conservation, I got a three slides on this. We've just done, basically, in short here, what we've done in terms of lighting is a lot of looking at old lighting inefficient lighting and upgrading it to higher efficiency T5s or LEDs. We're just about to embark on a project to relamp our entire public library garage with LED lights. And also the second major point there, the master lighting control project. This is very exciting. We've in the process of putting in place a whole system so that our facilities supervisor, literally from his desktop, can monitor the lighting all over the city buildings and turn them off remotely at his computer. So that's very, very exciting. In terms of our traffic signals, all of our traffic signals have been upgraded to LED lighting. And we are just now about to begin a pilot project with 20 lamps on Calderon Street in Mountain View and upgrading those street lights to LED lamps. So this is pilot because kind of the technology around LED street lighting is a little bit new still. So we're going to start off small, see if it works out, and then hopefully roll it out on a more broad basis. Last year we actually replaced the chiller in our Civic Center Plaza, which is what provides our heating and cooling system, for our City Hall and our Performing Arts Center. The facilities group put forth to the council 3 different options for chiller replacement. And basically, I'm proud to say that the council last year actually decided, or 2 years ago, decided to go with the most expensive but the most efficient solution. So that was really great. We actually are generating electricity from our landfill. There are businesses in the North Bay Shore area that are basically taking the methane gas that comes off the landfill, and they are actually generating electricity and powering their buildings with that. In addition to that, on the shoreline area itself, we have some microturbines, and that produces electricity for some of the buildings that are actually on the landfill area itself, and then whatever is left over is deposited on the grid. There we go. In terms of solar, we have a big solar array on top of our brand new California Bryant Parking Street garage, and that provides enough energy basically for the elevator and the lighting. We have the pump over at Shoreline Park is solar powered, and we're evaluating kind of the Berkeley First model to see whether we want to implement something like that to enable residents to get into solar power. As I mentioned before, the AB 811 is kind of what we're looking at a little bit more closely. It's similar in nature to the Berkeley model, but not exactly the same. And that's a picture of our array on top of our garage. And this is what it looks like first thing in the morning. So in terms of a few other efforts that we have going on, we are working pretty diligently to make sure that we have as good indoor air quality as possible. Our facilities folks are actually really pretty strong in this area. They're working to make sure we're using either low or no VOC cleaning supplies and those types of things. And we're in the process of trying to standardize around basically a no VOC carpeting product that actually many of the jurisdictions in this area have already standardized on. And we're also excited because we're working with a regional effort with the county on basically a program to either place a fee on plastic bags or paper bags that you might get at the grocery store, or ban them entirely. So this is not something Mountain View is doing on its own. This is a much bigger effort at the countywide level. They're actually hoping to have a model ordinance in place within, I believe, the next few months, something to be announced by Earth Day this year. And so, we're working with a number of different cities to make that happen, because that really has to be a regional approach. Got to get buy-in from a lot of different stakeholders in order to get either a ban or a fee passed. And just to kind of wrap up here, I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of some of the current challenges we have and some of the ones we've overcome. And several of the current challenges are not going to come as a big surprise to you. We obviously we're looking at a deficit for fiscal year 2009-2010. Fairly significant deficit, actually, based on the economic situation. So basically, as we had the task force deliver all these recommendations, and we're in the process of analyzing them and prioritizing them, right at this moment, of course, is when the economy decides to go south. And so now our finances are going to be severely constrained going forward. So that's going to make, obviously, my job a lot more of a challenge. So we're going to be relying on volunteer efforts as much as possible. And limited organizational capacity. Well, how many people are working in the city of Mountain View on sustainability? Okay. The other thing that we have is we have a fairly conservative culture. Okay. So the city council is fairly supportive of what we're doing. We've actually had few members turn over in our last election. So I'm actually happy about some of the changes that we might be seeing there. But in general, you know, Mountain View tends to be a little bit more of a conservative culture. And so I'm having to do what I'm wanting to do, but all the while maintaining an eye on kind of what's the overall culture and how quickly can I move the ball down the field within the constraints of this kind of a culture. And just, you know, to wrap up here, in terms of some of the challenges that we've overcome, the Environmental Sustainability Task Force, which was that 7-month program that I was the liaison for, I have to say that was an enormous effort. And I have to also say that it was the largest group of people that I've worked with that was almost problem-free. I mean, I've never seen such a large group of people work so collaboratively. We didn't really have any huge disagreements. Some of our agenda items took a lot longer than we thought, but in general, the process was incredibly smooth. And I just was really happy to be part of that. And so the logistics involved in that and the quality of the report that group delivered was actually really amazing. And I encourage you to take a look at it up on our website. I developed a project evaluation methodology early in 2008. That was basically to enable the city council to see where they should put their dollars in terms of should they buy more Priuses, should they do lighting upgrades, et cetera, et cetera. So this is basically a quantitative methodology that spits out on the other end what's the greenhouse gas reduction benefit of a given project. It enables you, in essence, to be able to compare apples to oranges type of projects. And again, we're also very happy with the environmentally preferable purchasing policy that we just got passed. That took many months to go through a number of stakeholder input sessions to get that to a point where it was approved by the council. So I will stop right there and turn it over to Julie Weiss from the city of Palo Alto.
Thank you, Steve.
We need to. Oh. Hello, everyone. My name is Julie Weiss. As the introduction stated, I do work in the water quality program for the city of Palo Alto, and I've been there for a number of years. Prior to that, I was in the city's solid waste program and I helped run the recycling programs for their community recycling program. So I've been there for about 14 years, and so I have a unique perspective in seeing how the city has grown over the years in terms of its attitude towards sustainability. During that time, I've also been, yes, that's it. During that time, I've also been really involved in the city's sustainability programs, and I've been able to wear both hats, and so I've got, I think, a pretty unique perspective of what we've been able to get done. And when I look back over what was going on even just 10 years ago. 10 years ago, we had a different city manager. It was several city managers before our most recent one we had it. And at that time, the culture was completely different in Palo Alto. We were literally, for a while, not allowed to use the word sustainability because that manager had just had some very strong suspicions. I think she had had some negative interactions with people about environmental sustainability. And so we were pretty much up against a brick wall. We're having a really hard time moving forward. And then some things changed. We got a new city manager who maybe sustainability wasn't his #1 passion, but he wasn't an obstructionist. And then we were able to start getting some new staff on board who really wanted to see things come to fruition, some projects come to fruition. And today I was looking back over of what we've actually been able to get done in the last 9 or 10 years, and it's astounding. We were the first city to become certified as a green business across all of its city operations, which I think inspired some other agencies as well. We have an award-winning water quality program, which means the plant that I work at, we've got something like 60 people who work there who our sole job is to keep pollutants out of the creeks and bay. And we've done a pretty good job at reducing that in terms of the pesticides that we're loading into creeks and bay and that we're not using anymore around the plant. We've reduced the toxicity of our custodial products, our print shop products. We've made some recent significant changes in terms of the type of lighting we're using. We're going to be also updating all of our lighting around all 60 of our city facilities, the most recent efficient lighting technology. And I think most important, we've had a cultural shift that we're finally starting to see occur. Mostly, I think, because of peer pressure, positive peer pressure. We'll talk about that a little bit more later on. So I'm going to, is this how we do this? So I just wanted to give you a really quick overview of some of the things that we've been working on in the city over the last 9 or 10 years. But I wanted to focus mostly about what we're working on right now. Because you can say, wow, we've been doing all this great stuff for 9 and 10 years, but now what do you have new for me that's interesting? And I'm going to talk to you about that. Of course, one of the first things people want to know about is what are you doing about climate protection? About two and a half years ago, we had a green ribbon task force of community members and city staff members who were meeting, and they put together a very impressive list of possibilities of things that we could pursue to try to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. And after that, the question was, okay, that's great. We've got these great ideas. Now what are we going to do with that? And we didn't have budget to hire a staff person. We didn't have budget even really to implement a number of these tasks. And so what our city did is they pretty much allowed 4 of us to form a sustainability team. They pretty much borrowed 4 people from different departments in the city, and for 20 hours a week to work on climate protection plan and about 3 other projects that you'll hear about as well, just to try to advance greenhouse gas reduction and purchasing, environmental purchasing, and how we're engaging with the community. How are we getting the community on board? So it started with the climate protection plan, and last year, December 2007, we presented the big picture plan to City Council. They received it, they liked it, they blessed it, and then the real work began, which is, okay, how are you going to make this, turn this into an action item? And in about the next month, we are going to be going back to council with the specific action plans. We're going to be detailing how we're going to be reducing our emissions by this year by 5%, and we'll definitely be meeting those goals. 15%, or another 5% for our city and for the community in 2010, and then another 20% several years after that. So we have several very real goals that we have to achieve, and the challenge is going to be, after we get that low-hanging fruit, what are we going to be doing after that? Because a lot of these programs are not cheap. So one of the challenges we have in meeting that second goal I told you about, how do we reduce our community and city emissions by 5%? So that means the emissions from our business sector, our residents, and as well as city government. And you should understand that our city government emissions, even if we did everything we could and money was not an issue, we only represent 9% of the emissions that our city generates, only 9%. So 91% come from our business and our community, our communities.
Speak louder, please.
Sure. Can you hear me if I'm talking about this level right now? Okay. So how are we going to be engaging that 91% of our community that's generating our emissions? And so we are experimenting right now with a program called KEEP, Community Environmental Action Partnership. And the idea behind this is that we need to have sort of a hub of all the leaders in our community who can meet together and who can look for solutions to some of the environmental problems that we have. This program started about a year ago. They will be giving an update to council during Earth Month, during April of this next year. And we have people from all of these different communities who are meeting together once a month to exchange ideas, to talk about solutions. But their most important goal is to implement change, is the action piece of it. And during our very first meeting, we had something like 150 people show up. It was in the papers. People were tremendously excited. And so this group is still moving forward. There's a lot of commitment to this effort. And I think that the challenge, because we are also talking about challenges too, any of you who've ever coordinated a large group of people, is how do you get people rallied around 1 or 2 particular things so you really are moving forward, and you're moving it from just talking about what's new and what's great to actually getting something done. And this group is learning how to do that too. It's getting its own legs, so it can really see the fruits of its labor. On a smaller scale within the city, we have also put together a green team for city facilities, and this is also brand new. We've just started doing this last October. And it's also an experiment. What happens if you bring a bunch of people together in a room that have nothing to do with environmental improvement as part of their regular job? What happens when you bring librarians together or folks who work on crews on the street? What kind of ideas do they have to reduce our solid waste, to reduce our emissions, to reduce the toxicity of the products that we're using? And there's a lot of people out there who are really excited about doing that. It's just a matter of giving them some time, giving them some space to think about these things, and then the blessing to move forward. And so this group just started meeting. They've got some good ideas, and we're going to be seeing what they come up with. But one of the first tasks we're going to be probably asking them to do is how can we reduce our paper use? There's a lot of interest in that. It's very tangible. How can they go back to their offices and change all of their computers and their printers so that they're automatically duplexing? Another task that we have been working on for really several years. We've been doing this for a long time, but we really had to hunker down and focus more in the last year and a half, is environmentally preferred purchasing. When you're looking at institutionalizing sustainability, you have to be looking at what you're purchasing, because you have tremendous opportunity to protect the health of your staff, to encourage businesses who are providing green products, and to have better environmental performance for your organization. So we adopted an EPP policy last year. This was actually a really tough effort for our city, just because I think the culture within that particular department, it was thinking that environmental responsibility was part of your job when usually all you have to do is go out and buy stuff was a new idea to a lot of folks. And so we've had to do a lot of kind of changing that model of what being a purchasing agent is. So we're in the midst of greening a whole lot of products, all these things that are here. That's going to be, we should all be done by July of this year. But it's not just about what you buy, it's also about how you use the existing resources that we have. How are we using paper? If I see something in my slide didn't get changed, so how are we using paper, for example? How are we looking for opportunities long before the contract has to go to purchasing to green our buildings that we're building? One of the things we're going to be doing this year is requiring life cycle costing for projects that are over $25,000, so that we're going to be making people go through that step of, did we look at opportunities to save energy? Did we look at opportunities to reduce waste? Did we look at opportunities to recycle anything that's going to be coming from a construction and demolition project? So we're going to be building that into the process, so it doesn't come at the end, but it comes at the very beginning. So we've done a bunch of good things, and I'm going to start with the opportunities that I see that we have right now in Palo Alto. And you know, in the 14 years I've worked for the city, I've never seen us better positioned to be able to make change than we have right now. We have a new city manager who, on the very first day of his job, Jim Keene, walked into the office where the sustainability team, myself and the three other folks who are working on these special projects, and he sat down and he said, so tell me about what you're doing with sustainability. And we started rattling off a bunch of environmentally related projects. And he's like, yeah, but talk to me about the triple bottom line. And my heart started pitter-pattering because he knew what that meant. And he talked about the 3 E's, and he gets it on a cellular level. He gets it. And I've seen him speaking to our executive staff at their meetings, saying, we have to do things differently. It's not going to be the same as it was in the past. He gets it. And we've never had leadership like that in the city, so it's tremendously refreshing to us. We also have elected officials who, you know, we now have, all of you I'm sure know that Peter Dreckmeyer is going to be our new mayor this next year. And we've had strong support from our mayors the last several years in terms of greening our city. You know, we have these 4 people right now who are anointed as sustainability staff, but the truth of the matter is that we have dozens of people in our city who are smart and they're committed and they are really advancing environmental, economic, and social sustainability all across the board. So we've got staff, we've got the right people, and we're in the right time. There's never been a better time with everything that's going on in the news that you're hearing about. So we are at the time to make a change, and it's never been a better time for us to look for these changes. The challenge is going to be, again, what it always is. It's going to be staff, it's going to be money. And it's also going to be, how do we engage people who typically don't want to be engaged or who have been reluctant to change? We also are looking at a budget deficit. But the good news is that our city manager has said, yeah, we are still going to be hiring a full-time sustainability coordinator, and that position is out right That person's going to have a budget, and that's just because of commitment from our organization. I think another thing we need to be looking at is how do we engage our nonprofit community. I was talking to you about KEEP. Right now, we don't have very many nonprofits who are engaged in that dialogue. I think it's because they're busy, they're overwhelmed, and they're just trying to get funding for their own organizations right now. But nonprofits are going to be central to us moving forward. Programs like Actera has a Green at Home program where people go, they recruit volunteers to go into people's homes and do energy and water audits for them. We need to be engaging more nonprofits in that way. And I think we also need to be summoning the internal heroes, that our own internal hero, and the potential for heroism in everyone in our immediate offices and in our community. I think sometimes people think that for them to make a difference in their community, they have to be exceptionally well pedigreed. They have to be exceptionally intelligent. They have to have everything be right for them to be able to move forward and make a change. And the truth of the matter is that everyone has an opportunity to be a leader. And we're going to need to be able to inspire that belief if we're going to be able to reduce that 91% of emissions that we have, if we're going to hit our zero waste targets that we have for our city. And so I think all of us as individuals need to realize that we are the heroes for our next generation. We're the ones who get to solve the problems now. And we need to be inspiring everyone else that we work with and in our communities. And one of the things I'm going to be looking forward to speaking with you about tonight is how do we inspire that in our communities? What are some things that we can be doing to get folks who aren't the same players who are always going to be our community leaders? How do we get fresh blood into the effort to green our cities? So I guess that's it for now, and we'll resume our conversation later on. You know, the one thing I didn't mention is that our definition of sustainability for the city of Palo Alto really is looking at the 3 E's. And I should have also mentioned that we have one staff person who's devoted just to making it easier for businesses to do business in the city of Palo Alto. And we have a great program called the Family Ambassador Program, Family Resources Ambassador Program, which connects normal, average, everyday people with all of the vast resources that we have, not just in Palo Alto, but community beyond that, to help people, you know, moms who need to find daycare if they're a single mom and maybe they can't afford regular daycare, people who need to find housing for seniors who are disabled, people who just need to find, you know, food and shelter for the next 5 days before a job starts. Where do you go to take a shower? And so we are looking at all 3 E's. What can we be doing for people? What can we be doing for the planet? What can we be doing to support businesses that are going to be supporting these goals as well? And one of the key things for the new sustainability position that I mentioned is to be how do we encourage green tech companies to be coming into Palo Alto? So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Diane.
And I'm the Environmental Programs Coordinator for the City of Menlo Park. And since you've had 2 really great PowerPoints, I'm not going to give you one. I'm going to kind of approach this to try to fill in some areas where I feel like there's some messages we all want to get across, and you guys have covered a lot about what cities are doing, and Menlo Park's doing some of those. I must point out that Menlo Park is the smallest of the 3 cities by far, but I wanted to kind of touch on some other topics and concerns that we hope that will engage you and get you thinking about how you can get involved in working in your own cities and workplaces. So I'll just take a moment to briefly overview Menlo Park's efforts on greenhouse gas reduction in the whole area of climate change and protection. About 2.5 years ago, the city council started. There were some city council people elected who actually put this as a top priority for the city. And then we had a group of individuals come together who said they wanted to form a Green Ribbon Citizens Committee and push for more programs and activities with the city that the city could help with. They also pushed them to sign the U.S. Mayor's Pledge, which is a national, or maybe it's international now, I think, document that says that our city will do all these things to try to protect the climate.
Could
And
you try to speak a little louder, please?
okay, sorry, could step forward too. And so this Green Ribbon Committee was formed, and at the first few meetings there were like 60 to 70 people coming. These were all just folks from the community, and not just residents but businesses also. We wanted to make sure that businesses were involved, representatives, and they formed into 5 subgroups, sort of like what Mountain View experienced, and came up with a long list of 130 recommendations. And so at the same time, the staff or the city hired ICLEI, which is, if you're not familiar with that acronym yet, it's International Council of Local Environmental Initiatives, and it's Local Governments for Sustainability is the whole name. We call it ICLEI. We hired them to consult with us on an ongoing basis to help us put together what's called an emissions inventory. And this is a project that any business can take on for themselves. And we did it for the city to set up a baseline, and ours was 2005, to measure, okay, where were we in terms of our energy use, our water use, our solid waste, our transportation, vehicle miles traveled, things like that, and then set that as a baseline, and then start looking at, well, where do we need to target our efforts and make plans to actually go about making changes that would help reduce these emissions. That was a tremendous effort. ICLEI helped us with that, a lot of data gathering. We presented that in November of 2007, and the next step after that was about a year ago right now, the council decided to move ahead with a climate action plan, which is taking off from the inventory where you assessed evaluated your situation and decide what actions are logical and viable to take up in the next few years, and to set targets for short, medium, and long-term emissions reductions. So we've been working on that for since basically last March, when we finally contracted with ICLEI through a grant with the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, and we got them back again to help us with coming up with this climate action plan, and now it's I'm living with it day and night because we're taking it to our city council the 27th of January. So our climate action plan in its draft form, I must say preliminary draft form, will be up on the city website a few days before the 27th of January, and that council meeting will have a presentation by ICLEI and by staff, question and answer, and it's open to all. You can find that on our website. You can look at the climate action plan draft on the website a few days before that meeting. It's not up there yet. I'm not done with it. So anyway, that's kind of where we are. We have looked at what we call strategies on the municipal side, how in our own operations, what changes can we make? And I think this has been talked about before. You've seen lists of those things. And then we also are looking at what can be done throughout the community and how can the city motivate and in some cases push businesses and residents to do better with climate protection. So we've tried to choose actions across the board, and we realized that this is going to take an effort not just on the city's part to start these things going and implementing, and finance, but also on residents and businesses and schools and the state government. And we're counting on the state government, really. We're grateful to be in California because they're really coming up with some great ideas and some legislation that'll move things ahead faster. So we hope to start with this budget year. This fiscal year budget is being put together this spring, and we hope that there will be on that budget, in that budget, some money allocated to do the initial actions that the city can actually work on that may either be for our city operations themselves, or perhaps something like green building ordinance or construction and demolition debris, recycling and salvaging, strengthening the law we already have on that. Perhaps continuing the Green at Home program, which we're involved in right now, with volunteers who are organized by Actera to go and trained by Actera to go into homes and volunteer homes who want to learn about their energy and how they can reduce it, how they can save money, and so we're targeting that now, and I hope we can continue that next year because it seems like it's going to be a very popular program. Don't want to get into the details, but schools, obviously the parents and teachers are starting to get on board. We have a couple of schools in Menlo Park that have just done outstanding things at their schools, and it takes the parents and the teachers and the school board getting behind it. I'll just mention one other type of partnership that I'm hoping we can talk about tonight. My goal tonight is to come away with some great ideas from you. We want to know, I think all of us want to know, what does it take in terms of motivating, say, businesses, the companies, the services you work for, to actually take on some of the actions or strategies that need to be done? What would you advise us to do in the way of engaging the businesses to take the initiative on their own, because the cities just can't do it all by themselves? And as you've heard already, the budget is a real difficult issue to face right now with all this pressure for making changes having to do with climate. So we need all of everyone to think about this in their own workplace and initiate things in their own workplaces. I've seen this happen. One of our largest workplaces is Tyco Electronics. It's a huge company. They have, through the years, I've worked with them back and forth, and they have done just amazing things because of the employees that work there. Some of them have come forward and pushed for changes. And it's amazing how, even from lower levels of a company, you can get some great ideas and people who are motivated to pull together a team and work within their building or their company to really make changes. And by the way, Menlo Park has an environmental awards program, and we did give Tyco an award for not only water conservation, but a lighting project they did last year that was just phenomenal, that conserved a lot. So anyway, that's kind of a quick rundown. I won't fill you in on all that Menlo Park's done or plans to do, but you can read it in the Climate Action Plan, which will be out in a couple of weeks. So be happy to give you more information on that after we talk. So.
All right, thank you.
The use of a wiki to help to bring good ideas and to be able to share those ideas, see best practices, see what motivates different people for why they might think that living sustainably is actually a benefit to them, and to get those stories told.
Good. A wiki. That's a good one.
Well, aren't there two? One for government, one for organization. For both?
I guess that would work for both, because it allows the personal experiences to bubble up, and it also maybe allows the organization to see kind of can take that information and summarize it and maybe get the top points to use as.
So you see it mainly as the question of getting the information out so people are aware of it.
Yes.
Right.
Say, oh, I can do that too.
Yeah. Oh, so then examples are another one. Right?
Yeah.
Come see what we did.
Yes.
Good. All right. How about the group in the back?
I think basically what we talked about was a lot of the impact of community outreach, creating awareness of all the resources that are available. People just don't know about. case studies where people can see, you know, what happened when a business did something that saved them a lot of money, or, you know, a little bit of money. That impact starts getting more people involved.
So what organizations are going to do that?
All organizations, business, grouping together like restaurants or nail salons is one example, or grouping together to see what they could do is, because they're like businesses. People like Actera who have programs that are available, you know, making sure that groups she was talking about, people actually going out and knocking on doors to, you know, bring awareness out into the community. You know, just ways to get more community, broader involvement.
Good, and by the way, David is heading up a Green Eggs breakfast series this year to have different companies showcase what they've done to other companies, and then we go around from company to company each month and see what we can learn from another company.
And working with like Actera and other groups that have business awards, for example, so they don't just win an award one year and wait till next year for something, giving a place for more activity between those times, be involved in those kind of activities, discussing what works and what doesn't.
Okay, great. How about this group?
Well, we, like the other groups, I think, we talked about the critical importance of networking and information sharing around best practices and collaboration among groups, and like municipalities. Sometimes they can figure out ways to do things on their own, and sometimes it makes sense for them to cooperate and collaborate with neighboring municipalities, that sort of thing. A lot of it's, you know, they can fit it right into the wiki. I mean, it's basically sharing information and ideas and building up the momentum so it goes beyond the early adopters to the great bulk of people and organizations.
That's true. I belong to a lot of wikis and groups that exchange information, but often they're talking past each other. So we need to find a way to make it so that we don't feel distracted by each other, but actually supporting each other.
I am sorry, Ed.
Yeah.
I'm a little out of my element, but over the weekend I saw several Star Wars movies with my daughters.
Yeah.
And that's the only wiki I know.
That's a Wookiee.
And you guys think I'm kidding.
No.
So you don't know the definition of a wiki?
No.
Okay, so it's an online encyclopedia which is developed by
Oh,
volunteers.
you're talking about Wikipedia.
That's one
That's
wiki.
wiki.
That's a wiki.
Wiki is basically an online collaboration space.
Well, he can write something and you can come in and write
Well,
over
you
the
can
top of it
read
if you feel like it.
Yeah, so it's kind of a shared space online where you can collaborate with other people.
Collaborative document editing.
Yeah.
So you can create a document as a team.
You didn't miss much. It's okay, Steve.
I have to, you know,
I needed that too.
I have to admit things.
Well, that's what we're here for, is to learn from each other, right?
That
Great.
learning and
Okay, you got something to add here?
Yeah,
Yes.
well, of course, we have the same concepts, but I think we said that peer pressure is the #1 incentivizer, that unless you really get a community that has a certain norm, you're never going to change people, that it's that public face of what would you do, you know, by yourself versus what out in public. So trying to get the key early starters to motivate others and have it grow. And we talked about on a individual corporate basis, you could have the early adopters sign commitments that they are going to recycle paper, they're going to double print, and then post that on their workstation. And then as more and more people do that, the person who doesn't do that will kind of be shunted out. So that was our big idea.
the other thing we saw from what a government agency could do is like we're seeing with buildings in places like San Francisco, where if you build it to a certain green standard, you get expedited permitting. So it's like if there's something you have to give everybody a dividend on, you give it to the good guys first.
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
you kind of, if we can time things better so that you get back, because I mean, I personally think, like we were talking before the meeting, just about information overload and how we all get thousands of emails and how I generate thousands of emails. You know, I mean, we all do that, and it's
Part of the problem.
that's part of the, you know, it's not all printed out, so it's not a paper thing, but there's just so much, there's information, but it's like you say, you're talking, you know,
Yeah.
the answers are there, but there's so much other stuff out there, so much chat, so
A
much.
counter example to that was San Jose was in the Mercury News about, city council decided that new shopping plazas should be up to a certain standard, and they couldn't get a permit because City Hall didn't know about it.
Yeah, in the city.
Right. So getting the information out to all the stakeholders and people that need to know it. That's great. Yes, anyone from this group?
Because we could say everybody's already said it, but that's
Okay.
not quite it.
Please.
I mean, the first thing, if you're going to deal with businesses, particularly small businesses, you're going to motivate them by what is of importance to them, which is profitability. So you start by selling the profitability side and link it to the environmental improvement, and eventually they'll get the idea that there's this linkage going on. We went around the topic of funding a bit, because Diane talked about having no money, but and I said, well, isn't this supposed to be a priority? It's got an urgency. So I think when it comes down to it, it's got to get priority. This isn't going to be done on a shoestring. We're talking about pretty major efforts. Case studies, I don't know about on wikis, but certainly paper case studies or other more, but local ones in particular. The role of green teams, if their employees are impassioned to make changes, they're likely to be change agents and likely to bring in information into their organizations. And information is very important. I should imagine there's a lot of companies that basic information how to get started. Small businesses don't have a lot of time, so having people who do that within the company and don't stress the management, then that could be very effective. Awareness, for example, of you know, free utility energy audits and financial support. There's websites with that information, but someone's got to bring it in, and it's important information to make that point.
So PG&E still does that, right?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah. But how many small businesses are sort of making that little effort to take advantage
No,
of it?
they pay consultants to come in and give you an
Yeah,
energy
right.
audit, and
Yeah.
it's free
Yeah.
to the organization.
Right. So some change agent in the business
Yeah,
has got to
true.
bring them in.
Yeah.
One thing I brought up is I don't think anybody's claimed the title of the greenest shopping area in the Bay Area, and Menlo Park has got a lovely shopping area, and I think Palo Alto is going to have a go for it because you've got people like Jim Bauer who are trying to green up the whole area, but I think it's sitting out there for one of the cities, maybe Menlo Park or you know, Mountain View or Palo Alto, and there's a program in Australia which has been funded by various state governments and run by an environmental consultant called Village Green, which has got a very interesting program which is behaviourally based and starts with an audit and runs through, you know, and they actually have a bottom-up approach. They have a database of all the equipment used in all these different businesses in local shopping areas, and they give them you know, what the electricity, energy, water, waste, and then give them a whole bunch of recommendations on what they're going to save them. And part of their thing is really promoting it, awards, having local logos, you know, so you're going back to the local shopping centre, is everybody who's gone through this process would have a you know, a Menlo Park merchants, you know, green, you know, they design their own logo type thing, and that's what they do in this program. And they found that very effective. And then once you've got some fair fraction of the local retailers or businesses, then you'd probably bring the others in. So that sort of behavioural modification, stuff like that's pretty effective. And I think also partnering with local business associations is really important. That's a place to talk to a lot of small businesses at once.
And so it's profitability, information sharing, networking,
The behaviour modification, or the behavioural side of it, someone else mentioned.
and ambiance.
Right, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you live in a green building, you feel better, right? It has natural light, natural air, and it costs less and you feel better. And of course, you have to know that that's why you feel better. If you don't know, then you're not going to promote it. Past 9 o'clock, so it's so exciting, and just really enjoying all of your ideas. And let's keep in touch.
She's only a developer. What the hell is that? Bring those people money. She's only a couple $100,000 back there.
Thank our speakers again.
Project evaluation.
I already have on an on request basis.
Oh, we use it. I don't know. We, that's how my own problem.